Rain Fugue by Jesse Redmond Fawcett. Slanting, driving, summer rain, how you wash my heart of pain, how you make me think of trees, ships and gulls and flashing seas. And your furious, tearing wind swells a chant that heals my mind, and your passion high and proud makes me shout and laugh aloud. Autumn rains that start at dawn, dropping veils of thinnest lawn, soaking sod between dank grasses, sweeping golden leaves in masses, blotting, blurring out the past. In a dream you hold me fast, calling, coaxing to forget things that are, for things not yet. Winter tempest, winter rain, hurtling down with might and main, you but make me hug my hearth, laughing, sheltered from your wrath. Now I woo my dancing fire, piling driftwood higher. Books and friends and pictures old hearten while you pound and scold. Pattering, wistful showers of spring set me to remembering far-off times and lovers too, gentle joys and heartbreak rue. Memories I'd as lief forget were not oblivion sadder yet. Ah, you twist my mind with pain, wistful, whispering April rain. Summer, autumn, winter rain, how you ease my heart of pain, whispering wistful showers of spring, how I love the hurt you bring.
As part one ended, Jeff Beck was a member of an acclaimed but sometimes volatile band, the Jeff Beck Group. They had been booked to play the Palm Springs Pop Festival in April 1969, but an alleged altercation between Beck and his lead singer Rod Stewart back at the hotel resulted in them missing the concert. After their no-show at the Palm Springs Pop Festival, the Jeff Beck Group decided that the band was in no condition to continue the tour. As a result, they canceled their shows at the Fillmore West in San Francisco and flew back to the UK. The band regrouped for a spring and summer U.S. tour that was to include a performance at the Woodstock Festival on August 17, 1969. In hindsight, many have speculated that this appearance might have been a big break for the Jeff Beck Group, had their part of the concert ended up in the Woodstock movie. However, the band never appeared at Woodstock because it split up for the final time in late July 1969 after a Detroit performance. In November 1969, Jeff Beck was involved in a serious automobile accident that derailed his music career for almost a year and a half. On the mend in 1970 and 1971, Beck reorganized the Jeff Beck Group with a new lineup: Cozy Powell on drums, Clive Shaman on bass, Bobby Tench on vocals, and Max Middleton on keyboards. It was this lineup that appeared on October 31st, 1971, at the Swing Auditorium in San Bernardino. They were promoting their new album, Rough and Ready. This was Jeff Beck's first appearance in the Inland Empire. The Jeff Beck Group returned to the Swing Auditorium on August 11, 1972. They headlined over Edgar Winter and the then up-and-coming boogie band Foghat. But by the time this concert took place, drummer Cozy Powell and bassist Clive Shaman had been dismissed from the group by Jeff Beck. The mid-tour sackings forced Beck to scramble to add replacements to fulfill tour obligations. The replacements were Carmine Appice on drums and Tim Bogert on bass. Previously, the pair had been members of the groups Vanilla Fudge and Cactus. Retained were Bobby Tench on vocals and Max Middleton on keyboards. They would not last long, as the Jeff Beck Group was in the process of transitioning into the power trio Beck, Bogert, and Appice. There was a bootleg release of the August 1972 Swing Show. It gave listeners a chance to hear this hybrid band. The tunes performed included one Yardbird song, 3 from the original Jeff Beck Group, 6 from the second Jeff Beck Group, and 3 that would be recorded with Beck, Bogert, and Appice. Almost 35 years would pass until Jeff Beck made a return engagement in the Inland Empire. That concert took place on April 7, 2006, at the McCallum Theater in Palm Desert. The musicians accompanying him at this show were Vinnie Colaiuta on drums, Jason Rebello on keyboards, Pino Palladino on bass, and Beth Hart on vocals. Vinnie previously recorded and toured with Frank Zappa, Joni Mitchell, and Sting. Jason also was a former member of Sting's band. Pino toured and recorded with The Who and John Mayer. Beth was an LA-based singer who was picked to sing the bluesy songs. 4 years later, Jeff Beck returned to the Inland Empire when he played a gig at the Pechanga Resort and Casino in Temecula on April 18, 2010. Backing up Jeff Beck were Rhonda Smith on bass, Nerida Michael Walden on drums, and Jason Rebello on keyboards. Rhonda was previously a member of Prince's band. Nerida Michael previously worked with Jeff on his 1976 Wired album, and Jason had been a member of Beck's band since 2004. 12 years would pass until Beck performed again in the IE. He made a return engagement at the Pechanga Resort and Casino in Temecula on November 2nd, 2022. Playing in Beck's band were his longtime Canadian bassist, Rhonda Smith. Newcomers, UK producer, mixer, engineer Robert Adam Stevenson on keyboards, German drummer Annika Niles, and Johnny Depp on vocals and guitar. Yes, that Johnny Depp. Before his acting career took off, Depp had dabbled in music. In 2012, he became a member of the Hollywood Vampires, a side project group with rotating members centered around Depp, Joe Perry, Alice Cooper, and Tommy Hendrickson. Beck and Depp first met in 2016 and over time found musical common ground and developed a mutual friendship. By 2019, they began work on an album that they would eventually call 18 and release in July 2022. It consisted of original songs and a number of cover tunes by other artists. In the fall of 2022, Jeff Beck began an American tour. Johnny Depp joined the tour on October 4th and would stay until its conclusion on November 12th. One of those dates was the November 2nd Temecula appearance. Sadly, this was to be Jeff Beck's final tour and last appearance in the Inland Empire. He passed away some 2 months after the conclusion of the tour on January 10, 2023.
said, it's alive.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to an edition of Brown Box. I'm your co-host, Ryan Harsch.
And I'm Chris LeRoy. And the concept behind Brown Box is that one of us will bring a piece of music that we really like that we want to share with the other person, and then we pull it out of a brown box.
Pretty basic, right?
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
So this is my selection this week. So this was timely because the head musician and songwriter in this band passed away recently. It's also it's got to be my top 5 favorite record of all time. I love this album. And so let's pull this out. And we have Television, the band Television. It's their debut album from the year I was born, 1977.
Wow.
Marquee Moon.
There's Tom Verlaine right there.
That's him. Yeah, this is amazing. A little trivia on this guy here because I'm reading Richard Lloyd's book. He's the other guitarist in the band. This guy here is orange because I guess all he was doing during that recording was eating a lot of carrots, and he contracted some kind of disease that made him turn orange. So that's why I've always wondered, looking at him, he does because the colors on this cover are just kind of like saturated or they look different. But it's 4 very unassuming guys who more or less invented something, and they were onto something that indirectly influenced a lot of things that came after it. So they were one of the first bands to play, rock band to play at CBGB's. They were on the forefront of that whole New York scene. They made just a couple albums and they disbanded, and then they reformed again in the 90s, for a little bit. But it's this record that everyone points to in terms of the songs, the production. It's just a perfect sounding record to me. 8 songs, but it's each one is very powerful. What do you think of this?
Oh,
what do you know about this?
Well, it's totally influential. In 1977, you were being born.
Yes.
I was just starting up the Dangers. It was about a year out before we started that band. But I was writing songs with the idea that maybe I'm going to do a band. And the thing about Tom Verlaine, or the sound of this music, was very helpful to me, as not just as a songwriter, but as a musician. Because growing up on my block in Colton, we'd have guys like Stan Joyce who could play. They try to play fast. They knew one Hendrix lick or something. So everyone said, "Well, it's the best guitarist in town." So everything equated guitar playing with speed.
Yeah.
And there was something when I first heard any of this music, either from this or The Adventure, it's this precise, crystalline, pure sound. It's the notes and the quality of the playing and the musicianships that just play stuff just perfectly.
Right.
In a way that it opened up really what music was going to become.
They were a little punk, but they brought in prog stuff, jam, so they were all the stuff the punks hated.
Right.
They did that too, so they were fans of prog, but they were also fans of the Grateful Dead, so in that reflected in their music. The title track is 10 minutes long. And it's definitely a jam song, but it's very orchestrated. It's got different parts. And the guitar work on this album too it's phenomenal.
The sound and the precision and the catchiness.
Yeah.
If he has a riff,
if
there's a riff from Tom Verlaine, it's going to be one of the best riffs ever done.
Absolutely.
And it will just sink into it's like a dart.
Right. Yeah.
I know that Lou Reed later on, in some of his solo material moving forward, he sounded just a lot like Television.
A little bit, yeah.
Where it was just sonically, I'm going to have these kind of solid songs.
Yeah.
And it still sounded like Lou Reed, but the early Lou Reed is his Walk on the Wild song.
Right.
The later Lou Reed seemed like he's steeped in this.
Yeah, he's hearing a lot of this stuff, and you have what makes this work too. Back to the guitar thing. Well, you have the rhythm section is just amazing. I like the drummer and the bass is so clear on these cuts.
Right.
But you have 2 guitar players who they're not like those the dual lead type guitar player. You can totally tell the difference. If
Right.
you know, if you so Tom Verlaine played very much like he has these very angular, different sounding style that was very much like a free jazz musician. And then Richard Lloyd was a little more of a traditional rock player. But they trade off melody, they trade off hooks, they trade off lead. Sometimes you couldn't tell who was who, but it was all meshed, like you said, meshed together so well that you have songs that when this came out, it wasn't even a hit record, and now people point to this as one of the best things ever made. So it's one of those records, right? That they don't. It's not going to achieve instant success. In their time, they rehearsed for this album for almost a year. And then they went and recorded this within, a couple weeks. And then they broke up a couple years later.
We didn't just have a rhythm guitarist and a soloist. Johnny Hickman was a great soloist. He could play all sorts of things. But we liked all these other bands. So it kind of opened up the door a little bit for me. Electric, even though I was such a kind of a hack at it in a certain way, is that I'd find these certain notes that would fit in to the big picture.
I can't really remember the first time I heard it. I was in my 20s at some point, but someone put it on, and I was like, "What is this?" Like that's one of those things where it kind of stops for you. The whole first side is just it just goes, and then it's the second side that people forget about. But there's a song on their "Guiding Light" I just think is amazing. And it's just like stuff that it's a gem. I forgot it was on here almost. Like you hear it, oh yeah, that's just So it's. Every time you listen to it, it's like you find little things that kind of creep out. They definitely were eyed by their first demos were produced by Eno. I guess so. Brian Eno, produced their demos. You hear those this sounds completely different than what you're hearing on this. This is way more polished. They brought in Andy Johns to produce with them. Apparently, from what I'm reading. He was having a little alcohol drug problem at the time, so he'd be passed out in the control room a lot. So they would just be recording, and this guy would be passed out. And he'd wake up and be like, "Did we get it? Yeah, we got the tape." Something interesting too that when they heard the band The Cars, Verlaine basically said, "Well, we're done," because that's a commercial version of television, which an argument can be made for that. But
Let's Go.
Yep.
One of the best pop songs ever recorded. And again, there's just the sound of that guitar, what he puts in there, the little descending notes and such. There's a precision of something that Rick Ocasek,
right?
What was going down.
Absolutely.
That there was a simplicity and a complexity that sat side by side in this music, and it reverberates today. I mean, it's like Chris from Eyelids write about Tom Verlaine, and she goes, we wouldn't be anywhere without this band or without Tom.
We recommend this to anyone who loves music. So more or less. But that's our edition of Brown Box. We'll be back with some others of our favorite records that we pull off the shelf. Again, I'm Ryan Harsch.
And I'm Chris LeRoy.
Thank you for joining us.
Hope you dig it.
Go. mercy hurts my eyes. Well, is it worth the things you lose? You board the train, watch the skies. I sing myself to sleep at night. I sing myself to sleep. With another song about the rain. It's coming down and burns through me. Another song about the rain. I got a line straight from my heart. There was a time it ran to you. Another place when we were smart. Before the flood and time was through. I sing myself to sleep at night. Sorry now sounds so far away. Will our child cry for me when he feels this dragon's flame? The highway flares make red the street.
On drums. Thank you very much. David Lowry.